Recording in progress.
Okay, we're going to call this special meeting to order. Dr. Veltri, are you online with us right now?
Yes, I am.
Great, thanks. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've gone through introductions and we've got quite a schedule here. So if you're okay, can I just pop up the video and we can go ahead and start? I'll share my screen.
Yes, thank you.
And hopefully that'll work. Can you see my screen?
We can, thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So let me see if I can get rid of that. Maybe not. Okay. So I've been working with Pima Community College since the beginning of January of this year to help you prepare for your HLC reaffirmation visit, which is going to occur in December of 2024. I've met all of you. I've worked with a lot of your faculty and staff. And today and tomorrow, what we're doing is helping people understand what's going to happen with the reaffirmation. And when you have a mock, I've done mock visits before where the institution wasn't quite sure what to expect. And so a lot of times they sat on their hands and they didn't answer the questions when I knew that they were prepared. So what I've been doing with institutions that I work with is giving them a pre-mock to the actual mock visit, because every little bit that we can do to help your people to answer the questions, that's going to help you even further to hopefully get onto a better footing with the accreditors. So this session is to give you an idea of what to expect. We discuss who the peer reviewers are. I believe you're going to have about 5 or 6 people in December that come in and visit with PCC and its students in the community. This will give you an example of what kind of questions they might ask after having read the criteria that you've presented and what is your role. And we're talking about this with every different group that we meet with. I've asked people, please respond openly and honestly, but be careful if you don't understand what they're asking for. Ask them to repeat it or say, this is what I think that you're asking for. So before I answer and, go down a path that's not what they wanted, and maybe it actually opens up even more questions that, didn't have to be opened up. Just try to ask them what they're wanting specifically. You all know the 5 themes that they're looking at. They're looking at your mission. They're looking at integrity, which is your ethical and responsible conduct. And the board comes specifically under criterion 2 with your bylaws and your board policies. Criterion 3 is the resources, the quality, and the support for teaching and learning. And it's not just curricular, it's also co-curricular. What other wraparound services does PCC provide to its students? And then the 4th one is, how do you know what kind of material is PCC collecting when it comes to evaluation and improvement of its academics, but also those co-curricular activities that it is sponsoring to help the student to succeed. And then the 5th one is institutional effectiveness, resources, and planning. So everybody that has participated in a meeting today, and I believe you're my 7th one, they've seen the same thing. This one asks, all the different meetings that could be conducted, what kind of questions are they going to be asking about? So for instance, criteria 1 and 2, there would be questions that pertain to the board in those 2 specific sections. The college leadership, those kinds of things. There will be a separate meeting with the board. There will be a separate meeting with the students. You're invited to attend any of those meetings that you want to as a board member. And because of Arizona, the way the statutes read, it's my understanding that the public will also be able to hear what the board has to say when the visitors come in December of 2024. I know that the last time that they were there, and I did talk to the leadership this morning, that I know it was in March 28 and 29 of 2022 when they did a focus visit report. The team was surprised that not only the chancellor, but the chancellor's executive leadership team came to the board meeting and they stayed at that board meeting. So I have told your chancellor and Wendy and Vanessa, make sure that they talk to the chair and let them know that because of the Open Records Act, it is open to the public. So it's not going to be a closed meeting. And I know in the past that's been handled in various ways. So that's something that you can discuss later on. This is what your mock agenda will look like when, whether it's the mock visit or the real visit in December of 2024. I don't know that there will be quite this many groups, but just so that everybody had an idea of what could be asked for, we went ahead and added as many team meetings as we possibly could, just to put your people at a little bit more ease, because this is a daunting process. So where are you at as an institution in this progress? What's your progress to date? All of the criteria have been drafted. The federal compliance report has been drafted. You have already asked a couple of people if they would serve as mock reviewers, and they have accepted that. I believe they're going to come in sometime in the fall of 2024, early fall, because they will review your criteria. They will make suggestions, comments. They will let you know if there's something that they feel that you're missing. Like I told your teams this morning, I'm biased. I've already worked so much with PCC, and I'm part of PCC, so I'm always going to be on the side for PCC. But these mock reviewers will come in and say, I think you could strengthen this a little bit. And maybe there's some more evidence that even in our meetings today, people have been talking and saying, oh, we have this, or we've got these grants, or this is happening. So that's giving more opportunities to provide solid evidence to these peer reviewers that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And not only do our staff understand what's happening, but so do our students. I wish you could have listened to your students in the session before this. They had nothing but glowing remarks to say about PCC, and that was not solicited. That was their true feelings. And so that's what this whole process is about. Your reviewers expect to see examples of information that validates that the institution is complying not only with the criteria, but also with the assumed practices. And like I've told your folks, it's not about quantity. It's not about you inundating them with paper. It's about making sure that what you link as examples is quality, that you wanted to know about our program reviews. You wanted to know what we're learning and how we're using that information. Here's some examples. And in some cases, people have said, you know, I feel like we're still a process. It's not all there. We're working towards it. That's okay. Be honest about it. So having said that, before I go into any questions for you, do you have any questions for me before we go into this?
Are we going to have any social interaction with the reviewers?
You could. And again, that's where the chancellor and Wendy and Vanessa will work with the team chair. I have been on visits before where the board has specifically requested that we're happy to meet with them one-on-one, but we would also like to maybe have dinner or something. And that's possible. Or a lunch or something. Yes. Anything else? Okay, then I'm going to go on. We've read, and I'm talking like a peer reviewer now, we've read that PCC reviews its mission, vision, and strategic priorities every year. As the college prepares for the future, what information does the board require to ensure PCC's mission, vision, and strategic priorities or current practices meets the needs of its diverse community? And any of you can respond, all of you.
I think we need to know the budget. We need to know are policies intact and are they being followed accurately? We need to know that students being focused on is our #1 priority and that student needs are being met. Anything else you want to add?
I'd also reference back to the chancellor's goals. I mean, the dashboard that we look at on a regular basis, and then by reference, being able to see where the chancellor is in terms of fulfilling her goals, with the idea that those goals are what is going to help the college meet the needs of the community as we go through the process of setting them. So I think that sort of iterative review that we do on a regular basis is a big part of that too.
Perfect. Anything else?
I think, I'm not sure if this is correct, but I'd like to know if the policies that dictate discipline for the employees and everyone else is being adhered to and that it's being done fairly.
Okay. So PCC provided examples of board policies and accompanying procedures specific to governance. What orientation or training do board members receive so they understand their role and function, and how often does that training occur, and how are differences resolved?
Well, when I joined the board a year ago, and Teresa and I both did pretty extensive orientation and training, excuse me, both from college staff and including campus tours and a lot of sessions where we sat down, but also from ACCT. We went through that session in addition to our retreats that we have once a year, twice a year, where we go through some of this stuff. And then I know that we've had training on Robert's rules and some other things that have come up on an ad hoc basis by request. So that's sort of the ongoing thing. But at least in my year, I think that. Oh, and then we've each had an opportunity to go to a number of, or at least 2 ACCT conferences at this point, and both of those I've been in, board training sessions about how we can best serve as board members. And so I think that all speaks to that orientation and training.
Anybody else?
There were 2 other conferences that I attended for board chair at the beginning of the school, well, not the school year, but the beginning of 2023.
And can you clarify for me how differences are resolved mean? Differences in what?
Differences between the board, differences, and I'm specifically, I'm going to step out of my peer review role. I'm looking specifically at if there was an embedded report that is being asked for, and I mean, your visitors are going to see all of those focus visit reports, all the monitoring reports, those kinds of things, so that they do know that there has been some unrest between the board and leadership. So, it's going to be asked. It's going to come up.
So I think what I would say in that I would ask them, have they watched some of our recent board meetings this year since January? Because this board is a lot more collegial and respectful of one another, and how we make sure that happens is we all have this attitude that we respect each other's opinions even if we don't agree with them. And that kind of collegiality and respect was missing in prior board meetings prior to this board being seated in January of 2023. I think we do have differences, and you can see that when we're in board meetings, when we have disagreements, we don't always vote unanimously, but even when we don't have a 5-0 vote, we respect the other people's wishes, and then from that point on, as a board, we all uphold the vote, even if we were not on the prevailing side of the vote, because we all support the agreements the board makes as a whole. So I think that's how we work, you know, if we do have differences, that's how we resolve those.
That's perfect. And just know they will not have gone back and looked at video. They will only look at what's in the evidence, the links. And I don't know, I know that they posted the criteria and you can go in and you can click on those links, but we don't, HLC doesn't allow really for video because then people would be sending video and it's written evidence. But the way you answered that is perfect. Anybody else?
As I mentioned before at the beginning, I think with this new board members that we have that arrive, I think our new committee board has been more open, but been doing more of the dialogue among each other. And I think that's a positive and a push or a stride in reference to going the right way. One of the things that I have mentioned before is I disagree with the one-year retreat. I think it maybe could be a quarterly or every trimester, because I think we need to continue that open communication, and a lot of things happen within 3 months as well too. But I think it's pretty much open, and the dialogue is very positive with the current 5 members that we have.
Okay.
I just want to, this is Maria, I just want to say too that, you know, I really appreciate the new board because they listen, and if they question, but it's respectful when they ask questions. They don't think that we're trying to undermine anyone, that it's just a different view. And so you know, and a lot of times I know I have found myself, you know, being corrected, but not in a way that it's like really a correction, but an explanation of something. And I'm pretty well satisfied with that, you know, with the answers that I'm getting. So that's
Excellent.
And then, Sandra, if I just may say that, I guess I was misunderstanding because I thought that the team would be reviewing our board meetings to see how we manage the board meetings. And
It's usually minutes. They'll look at minutes, but they won't look at video.
okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, your videos are good, but they won't. That's one of the things they don't allow is links for video. There's a whole manual of what can go into the assurance system. Okay.
Sandra, I have one more. I'm sorry,
Yes.
I have one more question. For example, you know, some of the response that were complaints that had been filed, I'm assuming that they're going to be looking at those. Is that correct?
They may.
They may.
It just, there's a lot of information that will be available to the peer reviewers. The assurance system is an electronic collection of all of, not just the information that you put in and the evidence that you put in as proof, but any letters from the Department of Ed, any of the past focus visits, monitoring reports, all of that is available. And so when they pick your team, they will specifically talk to the chair and say, these are the issues that have come forward from PCC. So here's the things that we specifically want you to be looking at to show us and prove that there is improvement in these areas. And there's a lot of improvement, not just in, you know, what happened in 2, but like your assessment reports and your multi-site location visits, those kinds of things. And the questions that I'm asking of your teams, it's to verify that what is written or the evidence that is given, that not just a few people understand it and can speak to it, but a diverse group of people can, and they've been able to. So does that help, Maria?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you guys are looking really strong. So How does the PCC board partner with PCC leadership to ensure that the board policies are up to date and that the administrative procedures comply with those policies?
That's interesting. I was just reading the AP on how they write administrative procedures today. And so in April, when I presented Board Policy 1.25, I think that Greg and Wade got training from the Chancellor, and Jeff Sylvan gave me and talked to me about the the flow chart, so we would understand how board policies are possibly changed or reviewed or altered. I don't think Maria and Luis got any training this year, but maybe it was just assumed that they had done it in prior years and they might have known it. I could be wrong on that. I'm not sure. This board has been very concerned that BPs weren't up to date. In our board policy, it said that they need to be reviewed or
Sandra, one of the things that I think, I'm not sure. Okay, so we did review board policies with the prior board, and a lot of changes were made on specific ones. They may not have all been in the best interest of the board as a whole, but I guess the question is that if some of those board policies are changed to reflect what this board wants, is there anything wrong in doing that?
It's again back to making sure that when you're looking at your board policies that they're in compliance with federal and state law. And so, I mean, and there's just like, I'll give you an example. I'm having an information session with a registrar that doesn't want to adhere to the 25% rule, that your degrees and certificates, you can let the student transfer credit in, but 25% of that credit has to come from PCC. It's not your registrar that I'm arguing with, it's with another institution that I'm working with. And this person is saying, show me that in the law. It's like, yeah, it's in Higher Education Opportunity Act, and it's so buried that it's hard to find. So that's where a lot of your board policies come from. It's grounded in federal or state law, or it's grounded in the best practices that, and I think what you're getting to is like the shared governance or the governance piece. One of the biggest pieces that will come up is about the delegation of duties to the CEO, to the chief executive officer of the institution, whether you call him a chancellor or a president. It's universal that it's not the board that is doing the day-to-day operations, because they don't have that expertise. It's people that the chancellor and their team hire that help with those different duties. And it is the board that is authorizing that chancellor. Is that where you're going, Maria?
No. With that particular policy, I'm sorry, I would disagree with that, mainly because I think that there has to be a different body. It's not that we're trying to control or we don't want to do the chancellor's job, absolutely not. But when there are issues that are important to the faculty and staff or the college as a whole, I think that you have to have an independent, open-minded board that's willing to look at it and address it. It still comes down to all of us adhering and doing what is best for the college. We're not trying to, believe me, we're not trying to control the chancellor or take their job away. I mean, that's not what we're about.
And then Sandy, if I could just finish, I couldn't remember the word review and revise board policies, and they're supposed to be done every 3 years, and there was a whole huge long list. Most of our board policies hadn't been reviewed in the last 3 years. So the administration is doing a great job. They have, I guess, 3 lists. Our last board meeting, we voted on and passed ones that needed no change or minor change. So we are a third of the way through having all of our board policies having been updated in the last 3 years. The bit about PCC's administrative procedures comply with our board policies. I think that, our legal counsel and the administration that is helping us work on these, they're not going to let us make changes to board policy that's going to go against procedures or other policies at the college. So they're pretty much on top of that.
Right. And I mean, to your credit, I'm working with another institution that some of their board policies haven't been updated since the 80s. So you're way above, and this institution's in a lot of trouble, but you're doing well. You're doing really, really good. But this is a question that they will ask. So how do you ensure, when you talked about the training, explaining that somebody went through and explained how the board policies match with the spreadsheet. So making sure that all of you are cycling through that. It doesn't mean that you have to do it all the same time every year, but that people are getting that kind of information, because that's where a lot of institutions are coming under fire. When we go back and we look at their policies, they're so old and they're so outdated. So, I mean, one president told me that 3 law firms have told them, we won't even take you as a client because your policies are so old. You don't have that problem. But those are the kinds of questions we have to ask boards because it's happening. Okay, I'm going to go on. Okay, freedom of expression is critical, particularly in the global and diverse environment of the 21st century. Since you have many day-to-day interactions with the community that you bring back to PCC, how do you ensure that your internal and external constituents' voices are heard, but not at the expense of another? If there is a concern brought to you by the community, how is that brought forward and addressed?
I mean, I guess I can only speak to myself, but I mean, I feel like I do this with some frequency, and the most simple way to explain it is I bring it to the chancellor. So, I mean, I suppose the first step is I use my judgment as to whether it's something that I need to bring to the chancellor or not, or whether it's just something I could explain or whatever it is and respond in a constituent services sort of way for someone in my district. But then, I think we've all been very careful going back to that, not micromanaging or getting data to get involved in day-to-day to go through the chancellor's office. So those concerns I'd bring to the chancellor, have a discussion with her. She may then connect me with another member of the staff, or she may take it and run with it, and then I either communicate back to that constituent about the resolution, or I connect that person with the appropriate person at the college to continue that communication. So it's a fairly dynamic, regular occurrence for me anyway.
Perfect. Anybody else?
Another really good example of that, my brother sent me an email he had received from one of our constituents in the city, and they were concerned about how this board was going to deal with some properties that the college had bought in prior years. And I know Greg answered hundreds of emails. I answered hundreds of emails. I think all of the other board members did also, just thanking them for their concern, because they have a concern. And then we actually held a special session. The board had a special session that was predominantly so people could come and talk. We had a call to the audience, and we expanded the time limit. And we actually allowed every single person who wanted to speak pretty much the full time that they wanted, whatever they were trying to tell us. So I think that this board really does a good job of that when it's something that we can't handle, like Greg was saying, by ourselves. We definitely know to pass it off to the chancellor, and his staff usually takes care of it if it's something that, is further down the line.
Excellent example. Anybody else? Okay. Does the board stay abreast of the issues and concerns affecting the institution, yet ensure that the day-to-day management of PCC is delegated to the PCC chancellor?
I mean, my initial response to that is, and I would refer them to, if they're not going to watch the videos, at least to the meeting minutes. But I mean, we get pretty regular presentations, not only around the chancellor's goals and things going at the college, but all the representatives to the board, the faculty, staff, the adjunct faculty, the student representative that, you know, bring issues and concerns forward. So I guess, to be fair, I could always say I don't know what I don't know, but I feel like we have lots of opportunities and are given lots of information from, including people that come to the public comment periods in the meeting. So I think the board meetings are the primary way that we would stay abreast of issues and concerns, because it's in a very structured format intentionally to avoid that mixture of day-to-day management and all of that.
Anybody else? Did I read correctly in your criterion arguments that some of the board members serve on some of the committees? Is that true?
That is true. We currently have one board committee. It's the Finance and Audit Committee, and Maria Garcia and myself serve on that committee. Luis Gonzalez had a question or a comment for you.
It's a comment. One of the things that that it's very positive in reference to not only the issues and concerns, but more important, the safety incidents that happen in providing the board members abreast in reference to what is going on in all the campuses. I think that's one of the methods that the public safety makes us aware, but also makes aware of that to the whole community as well too. And I think that's a plus in reference to having those check and balances in reference to informing not only the board, but more important, the community.
That's a good point too. I hadn't thought about that, but thank you, Luis. It jogged my memory that in addition to those kind of public safety alerts that you're mentioning, we do get a lot via email too. I mean, we had that hiccup with some of the reports that we weren't getting, but now we're getting them again around enrollment. But then I know Dolores especially has, I thought, been very good about sending updates for things she's participating in or things that are happening at the college so that we have that information. So we do get pretty regular information via email in addition to the board meetings themselves.
And what you said just validated what was told to me this morning on safety issues and concerns that were one of my questions. You just validated what was told to me this morning. That's perfect. Anything else? Okay, finish this sentence for me. I ran to be a PCC board member because, and I'm most proud of PCC because, and I'd like that from each of you, please.
I ran to be a PCC board member because I value this college. And what I'm most proud of PCC is all of the employees that continue to work day in and day out to do the best that they can do for the college. Even in these times of change right now when we're having an interim chancellor and you know, the HLC reaffirmation, there's a lot of extra work and extra burdens, and I'm proud of the people that are putting their best effort forward and doing the job to get it done and not just, you know, riding the coattails of this amazing institution.
Thank you.
I applied to be a PCC board member because I thought I could help improve the culture of the district as it pertains to the perceptions of the community and help facilitate a positive relationship between the board and leadership. I am most proud of PCC because of the reputation that this college has on how they treat their students.
Thank you.
Okay. I ran to be a PCC board member because I felt that our communities needed representation from a diverse group. And having worked out in the business sector, I have encountered and experienced a lot of the need that the educational needs of our community. And I am most proud of PCC because of the impact that it makes to each individual student and to the economic growth of our community.
Thank you.
So I ran to be a PCC board member because I wanted to make sure the college was affordable, accessible, and accountable. And I'm most proud of PCC because of the transformative impact that it has on students' lives and fundamentally changing the trajectory of their future.
Thank you.
Very good.
I ran to be a PCC board member because I had prior experience working with the college with my other position that I had, and I've always seen education being the key for the betterment of all students as well. And I'm most proud of PCC because it's a public institution that belongs to the community and should always continue that as well, providing the needs and services to our local people community.
Okay, that is it for my questions. I'm going to stop sharing. Once again, it was an awesome session, I think. Oh, why are there two? What happened? Not sure.
We can still see you and hear
Can
you.
Oh, okay. I lost the board. So do you have any questions for me? Or what's happening with the criteria? We have Wendy and Vanessa.
So,
I know you get regular reports.
Sandra, I've gone to quite a few of the different open houses I think that they've had. And I do appreciate all the work that everybody's doing. I think, you know, it's a massive amount of work to make these documents for HLC. And so I'm really appreciative of those people. My question for you is, at some point, will the board receive the documents that the college is sending HLC so we can read what was written? Or is that something that is not normally shared with the board?
I thought that everything had been shared in November, the criterion drafts. So I'm going to let Wendy.
Yeah, the criterion drafts, I think, were up as of November 3rd, 5th, some date in there. So they are posted online under our accreditation page. So right now we are looking for any kind of feedback for better evidence somebody may have than we used. If there's something that's not quite accurate in there, we're looking for corrections on it. So the first draft is posted. It'll be up till December 31st. After that, we're going to combine it all into one document, add those corrections that people have found or additional documents, and we'll be posting a last draft probably somewhere in April-ish for an all-in-one draft. Right now, they're split out by the various criterion. So yes, they're available right now.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're muted, Sandy.
I just have a format question. So just so I'm clear, when we're asked these questions during the actual review by the HLC, this is just a verbal discussion we're having with them, right? Or is this like a written back and forth?
No, thank you for pointing that out. I'm only giving you the question but they won't. They will just in a meeting with you talking, and I've told your people, make sure that you have a pen and paper, so that way, because you saw how long some of my questions were and how confusing it can get. So it is, you can ask them, please repeat what you just asked, or I think this is what you asked, but I'm not sure how your mock reviewer is going to do it. I would say that it would be best to ask your mock reviewers to be there in person, not to do electronically for the mock visit. Make it as mirrored as possible as it's going to be in December, because I've seen today people hiding behind their screens, not answering the question right away. We had to prod them. Once they got going, it was okay, but it's best to do it in person, because that's the way it's going to be for the peer review when they come in December. But you won't have written questions.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that Vanessa and Wendy would be able to show you where to find those documents on the webpage. Because yes, you need to read those.
Yes, we'll send over the link.
Yeah. I think, I'm hoping, I know it's a lot of work. I know it's a heavy lift to be doing all of this information, but the reason that HLC has an institution do this is because you're learning through these processes. You're learning how to improve the services that you are providing to students. And just today, just the meetings that I've had today, people saying, well, we've been gathering this data and now we know how to improve it and move it on to the next section. Your program reviews are being linked to budgets, which weren't happening 4 years ago. And all of that is happening as a result of what's going on with HLC. So it sounds like a lot of work, but what they're trying to do is to make all of our educational institutions as strong as possible, because we need to follow federal law, but we also need to do what's right by our students, which is what you're all talking about. So anything else for me? Any questions, concerns?
No, but thank you.
Yeah, your team's knocking it out of the park. You have a lot to be proud of. And I hope this team recognizes that. And I know I'm going to HLC for the annual conference. I'm just going to the peer review, but I'm going to seek out some people that are the HLC liaisons. And I mean, you guys are doing wonderful, really, really good. So I can't promise you that they're going to take you off of take you off of standard, because it's just too soon and there's been too many issues. But man, if we could just get them to lighten up off the pedal, because you guys are really rocking it. I wish you could have heard your students, what they had to say. It was glowing. And I'm looking forward to your community. I think how many do you have? Like 60 people that are registered for the community session next? It's unbelievable.
We have about 35, Sandy.
Oh, okay. Oh, it was 67 that was at this morning's session. Yeah. It's unheard of. I mean, for a pre-mock, for them to come in, you're doing great. Okay, well, if you have nothing else for me, I will let you get back to your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Do we need to adjourn this? So move to adjourn?
Rec-